Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to apologize. Notice I got that verb down now. I'm going to apologize for my nose before we start. Years ago, I bought a house in Texas while I was in the military, planning to come back to it and retire because they didn't raise much corn here. My body does not like what comes off of corn in no way or whatever. But anyway, I usually have to go get an inhaler when they start harvesting it in about this time of year, and my nose is telling me it's about that time. So if you see me sneeze or something, I'll get over it and we'll go on. Is evolution a religion? And I want to go through that today. Now, if I have a logical argument, it doesn't mean that the two of us are yelling at each other. A logical argument has several premises, one or two, and then there's a conclusion. You say therefore. So you say if this occurs, all cats have hair. Patches is a cat, therefore Patches has hair. That's a logical argument. But there are some cats now that don't have hair, so it's not true. But at least it's valid. I mean, it's valid on form. If evolution is a religion, it can only be fought in the spirit. And that didn't occur to me until about a week ago. I was thinking, since these are scientists or people who believe in science, if I can just make this mental, physical, thank you, Ray, if I can just make this argument that, all of these facts, then they'll believe it and we can go on. The trouble is, facts don't matter. When you're talking to somebody who believes in evolution, facts don't matter. I don't know if you've ever had that opportunity, but you can sprout facts all day long, and they cannot hear them, and they will not believe. Well, they'll even believe them. They'll even agree with you, and then at the end of it, they'll still tell you that they believe in facts. In evolution. I was in my 20s, late 20s. I was that young once. And I was at Vanderbilt University in graduate school. And I was sitting there, and this lady, she knew that I was an atheist. She knew I did not believe in the spirit. She was a professor that I absolutely loved and looked up to. And yet, sitting there one time, I said in class, we were discussing stuff, and I said, evolution does not work. And she said something that I didn't really think about. She said, yes, it's true, that it doesn't work, but they'll never admit it. That should have been my first clue, okay? I was talking to a young man one time. He was a very learned young man, and I was talking to him. And finally, at the end of it, we were just talking back and forth. We weren't mad at each other or anything, but at the end of it, I said, tell me of one single phylogeny. He knew what a phylogeny is. It's where a lizard goes to a bird, for example. All of the missing links in there. And I said, tell me one single phylogeny where something went from like a reptile to a bird, or a reptile to a mammal, or anything. And I said, can you do that? And he said, not yet. Now, that didn't register to me until I started thinking about doing a story or a sermon on evolution or a lecture. And it occurred to me then, facts don't matter. He knew the facts. He knew that there was not one single time that they had ever dug up anything that showed that it went from this animal to this animal. But it didn't matter. He still had faith in it, and it was not yet. And, I didn't give it up until I came to Christ and became a Sabbath-keeping Christian. And I called Anthony, who's sitting back there right now, and I called him one time, and I think I'd been studying the Bible and trying to learn for about 6 months. And I called him and I said, I've given up the belief in evolution. I was 37 years old. I was an atheist at 19 and started believing in evolution. And I was 29 years old when I said in class it doesn't work, but it didn't occur to me facts don't matter. I still believed in it. It just didn't work. I knew that there was some way it would work. That's the signs of it being a religion. That's the signs of it being spiritual. So I put together this argument with different premises. If evolution is a religion, it would have the characteristics of a religion. So I'm going to go into that. If evolution has the characteristics of a religion, then it would be a false religion. The reason why is it says a different way of creation. Let's turn to chapter 1 of Genesis. And we'll read the whole chapter because it's the creation chapter. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's divine Elohim. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the spirit of divine Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind. And that's a big thing about evolution. Everything does reproduce according to its kind. Nothing gets out of that according to its kind mode. But whose seed is in itself on the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heavens, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens, to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day, over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Then God said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind. And my pages are stuck together. And every winged bird according to its kind, and God saw it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Then God said, let the earth bring forth a living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, and it shall be good for food, also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life. I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. Then God saw everything that he made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth, where all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. Now, the seventh day is literally God's signature on that he created everything. If we go out here and we get somebody says that truck that I've got, I don't know why anybody else would want it at this stage, but if somebody said that truck you have is not yours, I've got papers that prove it. It's not a coincidence that when I became a Sabbath-keeping Christian just a few months later, I gave up all of evolution. Because when you become a Sabbath-keeping Christian, you know who created the heavens and the earth. And you know who his people are. So if people say that the world was created by any other means as stated in these scriptures I just read, it is a false religion. Period. If evolution is a false religion, it would have at least one or more pagan gods, deities, gods with a little g. Pagan deities or God with a small g are really demons. There's no difference between mythology and mythology and demonology. There's no difference. If demons are present, the mind is controlled by demonic possession or mind control, and you cannot fight demons with facts and logic. Yahweh, Yahshua, our Heavenly Father can fight demons. We can't. Therefore, evolution, this is the conclusion, evolution is spiritual warfare and must be fought in the spirit world by prayer, binding up demons in the name of Christ, and asking for our Father in heaven to open the eyes and the ears and the hearts of those who believe in evolution. Facts won't matter. And I've run into that time and time and time again, but it didn't really register to me. If you're fighting a spirit, the only way you can fight a spirit is in the spirit. And of course, if the Father in heaven does not wish to reveal it to them, you just have to move on or keep praying. And all the statements prior to that, therefore, evolution is spiritual warfare, all of those premises would have to support that conclusion. So the first one, if they are true, then the conclusion must be true. If you have premises that are true, the conclusion has to be true. Patches is a cat. All cats have 4 feet. Therefore Patches has 4 feet. Okay? Patches is my little cat. So that is true on form. Now, one of them might have been born without it, but normally cats have 4 feet. So I'm going to take each premise and go through it and see if it does prove it. The first premise, if evolution is a religion, it would have characteristics of a religion. It would follow the definitions of a religion. I bought this book in around 1970. Okay? It's good to rub your nose on it. My nose is just killing me today. But anyway, I bought this book in about 1970, and I've never found anything better than it for any kind of a dictionary. It's Webster's New World Dictionary of the American Language, and with a student handbook in it. And I bought it right when I was in college, September 23rd, 1970. I wrote the date in it for some reason. But I took it, and I looked it up. When I thought of it being a religion, I went immediately to my little study and I pulled that out and I said, I'm going to just look up the definition. So it had 5 different definitions for religion. The first one, belief in a superhuman power or powers to be obeyed and worshipped as the creator or creators or rulers of the universe. Second one, expression of this belief in conduct and ritual. Third, any specific system or belief, worship, often involving a code of ethics, and for example, the Christian religion. Number 4, a state of mind or way of life expressing love and trust in God as He achieved religion. And 5, any object of conscientious pursuit as cleanliness as a way of life to Him. If we say belief in superhuman powers as the creator of the universe, this applies to evolution. Evolution, according to those people who follow it, is the creative force of the universe, the very cause of life and the very sustainer of life. This gets to pagan deities, some here also, because they are definitely camouflaged, but the sun's rays striking the chemicals of the earth under the right conditions cause life to be formed on earth. Paganism, the sun's penetrating rays into Mother Earth cause life to be formed on earth. Now, I pulled up some internet articles, and this is off of a little chat area. It's called Create a Debate. But I want to read to you what one person said. Part of my point is the slightly appropriate one, God of life. If asking if the sun, that's the S-U-N, is the real God of life, small g, I invite people to compare the sun to other gods of life that religions have offered up. There is much evidence supporting that the sun is the supreme being who created life, can think and is intelligent as there is for any other god of life, which is to say none. But unlike the other gods of life, the sun does enable life on the earth, and this is a fact. One fact more than any religious theory. Everyone debates God in the context of His wisdom as a creation or His intelligence or the status that He has as God, but all of this is conjecture to be taken on faith. If you have to take those things on faith and apply them to something, why not pick the ready-made God of life in the sky instead of God whose very existence is questionable? The biggest flaw in this is that the sun did not create life. But they say that the sun's rays cause chemicals to react and there was life. Why isn't that happening now? Why hasn't it happened more than once? It hasn't. But the debate is what is the center here. Is the sun the creator of life? It takes a lot of faith to believe that the sun actually caused enough energy for DNA to get together, because it can't work that way. When we look in the scriptures, we find out what this phenomenon is. Let's turn to Romans, the 1st chapter. Romans, the 1st chapter, and we'll read verses 22 through 25. See if this sounds like PhDs in paleontology or the study of old bones, that sort of thing, or different people who study evolutionary theory. Because they are very wise and they are very learned. They say great big long words in Latin and Greek, and and they know a lot of things about chemistry, geology, and things like that. Verse 22, professing to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds, and four-legged animals, and creeping things. Therefore God has given them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies and among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. People are worshiping what was created rather than the one who could create it. Where did the sun come from? It couldn't have just happened. It had to be created. It couldn't have created itself. We see that people who study these things, and I've had professors in college when I took different courses who believed in evolution, and they thought themselves very, very wise. And they had to say that the sun caused chemical reactions on the earth, and eventually very primitive life forms came, and then on up and on up. The people who taught in college, like comparative anatomy, they memorized great big long words of bacteria and insects, reptiles, mammals, and different things, and they could tell you different parts and how these things lived and how they came about. And they would tell you that the sun is what caused it, and reacting with Mother Earth, and that it sustains life on this planet. And if the sun burns out, we all die. I think I've shown my point that they have another creator for the world and for us and for everything, for the universe, for all of the stars and all of space. Number 2, expression is belief in conduct and ritual. Now, you may not see the ritual of colleges and things like that, but there is a lot of ritual there. These people wear certain clothes. They come in, they conduct their classes certain ways. And believe it or not, you're not allowed to say things like creationism or anything like that, or was there an ultimate planner or ultimate creator. They will get you out of there one way or another. They're not going to teach that part of science. But what does it mean when you worship? They literally worship the sun, and they literally worship the Mother Earth. They just don't call it that. Okay? But what is the difference between saying the sun created life and worshiping Apollo, the Roman sun god, or worshiping something else? Because you can go online, and I went online, and it didn't take me very long. Cause and effect, the sun is the cause of all life on earth. And it has a picture of Apollo holding up the world. And there's all kinds of things you go online and see. I won't get into them, but they have their rituals. I've attended conferences. I've attended many conferences on different subjects. And when you go to college, you'll see that they have their rituals. It's a ritualistic thing. And they will not allow certain other knowledge to come in to those rituals. If I got up and said, I believe someone who had an ultimate mind created all of these things just by speaking, they're going to ask me out of there because it's not part of their ritualistic behavior any more than Ron would allow somebody to come up to this pulpit and start saying, you know what, I believe in evolution, and I believe that God doesn't exist, and I believe the sun was the cause of our life on earth. And really try to sell that. Let's go to number 3. Any specific system of beliefs and worship involving a code of ethics. And it's tricky here because they have a code of ethics. And they draw their code of ethics from different places. When I was an atheist and I believed in evolution, I believed there was no God, but I believed in a system of order, so whatever society said I could do, then I could do. It wasn't about the laws of God, it was about the laws of society and different things like that. I wasn't a homosexual. I had plenty of other sins. But let's read what happens. Let's go back to the Bible and let's go back to Romans 1 and let's read what happens to people who believe in another God. And it says, for this reason God gave them up to vile passions. For even their women exchanged the natural use of what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another. Men with men committing what is shameful and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting. Being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness, They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. Just watch the news. That's all you've got to do. We've had evolution in this country for many, many, many years. Just watch the news. Can't abort a woman after 20 weeks. That is so controversial right now. It's in the Texas legislature. Homosexuality, if you say anything about homosexuality, you're a homophobe, you're horrible. If you say marriage is between a man and a woman, that is so drastic now. And we've had evolution. Is there a connection? I believe there is. Okay. Evolution is the excuse for many sins, just as for me, until I was 37 years old, evolution was the excuse for many sins. Really was. In fact, I generally practiced what I could get away with, what society deemed appropriate. I don't want to go into it. If you ask Anthony, I hope he doesn't tell you, but everything becomes a product of the process of evolution also. If you have a certain problem, it's not really a problem. It was you were born with it. If you have a certain action, you were born with it. Why? Because it's in your DNA. It's in your system. So the code of conduct becomes man's and societal laws, and codes of conduct comes from a different set of rules, and it ignores Yahweh's laws. And that's where the world is now. I don't have to go into it. You can watch the news and get all kinds of things from it, but they write their own codes of conduct now. I have stuff come through my desk a lot about how we should act and how things we should do, and I'm like, why keep trying to rewrite the Ten Commandments? You're not able to do that. Poor rewrites of the Ten Commandments, I see it all the time. In businesses, in government, everywhere. Number 5, any object of a conscientious pursuit. I have seen people give their whole lives to learning how evolution worked when it doesn't work at all. They believe it, they preach it, and they fight for it. If somebody prays, that is a divine creator, that goes against evolution, so they have to get the person who prayed out of there, because one of the worst things in the world you can have is somebody say Jesus Christ in school now. You can hurt somebody with the Ten Commandments. It's not fair. You can hear it all the time. I was canoeing with a lady, and she pretty much had given her whole life to doing these things, and she was an entomologist. She is a PhD. She was very much into studying about animals and stuff, and she told me that evolution had been proven because of this one colony of ants. Okay? Study of insects, entomology, and she believed evolution had been proven. Even though she didn't have anything else to go on, she believed it was right. And that word believed carries a lot of faith with an evolutionist. So I believe I have pretty much shown that the characteristics of evolution in all 5 definitions are true. And we can talk about that in the Bible study. The second premise, if evolution is a false religion, it would have at least one or more pagan deities. I've already mentioned Apollo and Mother Earth, the Earth Mother, Venus, Aphrodite. But what about Sybil? Does anyone in here, does everyone know who Sybil is? The Roman goddess of chance. Now this is something that makes no sense to me now. I guess it used to, but it makes no sense. When you say, and they say it, evolution could never have happened. There's so many chances against evolution happening that it really could never have happened. But they'll turn around and say, but we're here, therefore it happened. We just need to figure it out. That's circular reasoning. That's an illogical argument. That is called a fallacy. It is wrong from one end to the other. But they will say, and I would imagine I was saying the same thing, we just have to figure it out because we're here. That proves it. But evolution couldn't have happened, but because we're here it happened, therefore we just have to figure out how it happened. And that is a totally illogical argument. It makes no sense. And evolutionists will even tell you that. So something is blocking their scientific, logical mind if they say that. So, but remember what I said, first of all, when you're dealing with paganism, when you're dealing with demons, facts do not matter. You cannot fight them with facts. That's what makes it so unreal, because they say it's a science, so you think, well, if I can get the facts out to this scientist, he's going to believe different. Problem is, it doesn't work. Because this scientist is believing in pagan gods, and demons have control of his mind just like they had control of mine. And it's always not yet. So, I might as well just be saying not yet from 29 to 37 years old when I said it doesn't work. Openly admitted, said it doesn't work, but I might as well said not yet. When's it going to work? Well, it doesn't work yet, but we'll figure it out. That's faith. That's mind control. Mother Earth, Apollo, or any sun god, Tammuz, or any of them, Chant, Sybil, and there's probably many other gods. I did a sermon one time on how many gods I had, pagan gods with a little g, I had when I was an atheist. And I think I came up with about 9. I can't name them right now, but I'm sure that sun god, Mother Earth, and Chant were the first 3. But paganism is nothing more than demonism. They believe in false gods. And we can find an example of paganism and demonism together in Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, we'll go to verse 12. It said, Then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the room of his idols? For they say, The Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land. And he said to me, Turn again, and you will see the greater abominations and they are doing. So he brought me to the door of the north gate of the Lord's house, and to my dismay, women were sitting there weeping for Tammuz, the sun god. Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? Turn again, you will see greater abominations than these. So he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and there at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces turned toward the east, and they were worshiping the sun toward the east. And he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? It is a trivial thing to the house of Judah to commit the abominations which they commit here, for they have filled the land with violence. Then they have returned to provoke me to anger. Indeed, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore I will act in fury, my eye will not spare, nor have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them. And yet on Easter we have Easter sunrise services. We have Christmas, the birthday of Tammuz and other sun gods. And the people who believe in evolution say there's no connection whatsoever. You can even find online where God God used evolution to create us, and that's not true because it took him 6 24-hour days to create the heavens and the earth. That's what my Bible says, and that's what I believe. And then he rested the seventh day, and he made it holy. The seventh day had to be 24 hours for him to make it holy. It had to be the seventh day. It couldn't have been the 7,000 years, or else we'd be doing 1,000 years of church and everything at one time. It had to be the day. But as I said, you cannot fight demons with facts and logic. You have to have Jesus, the name of Jesus on it. You have to have your armor. You have to have all those things. Let's turn to Jude, the 8th chapter. Jude 8, and we'll Jude verse 8. If you find Jude the 8th chapter, let me know. I'm sorry. But let's read the 8th chapter of Jude. It says, the 8th verse of Jude. Likewise, also these dreamers defile the flesh, reject authority, and speak evil of dignitaries, and probably dictionaries too, but dignitaries. Yet Michael the archangel, in contending with the devil, when he disputed against the body of Moses, dared not bring against him a reviling accusation, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." But these speak evil of whatever they do not know, and whatever they know naturally, like brute beasts. In these things they corrupt themselves. Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, have run greedily in the error of Balaam for profit, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. Now, excuse me, my mouth got a little dry. Michael is an archangel. You don't mess with Michael. Okay? Michael has done many great things. Michael didn't take on Satan. Okay? If Michael can't take on Satan, then Nick can't take on Satan. Okay? That's what I'm saying. If Michael is going to say, "The Lord Jesus rebuke you," and not start accusing him of these things and start fighting with him, then Nick shouldn't do that either. Because Nick ain't no Michael, okay? If we're going to take on a demonic force, you have to do it in the name of Christ. Michael did, we have to. We're only going to get hurt or do nothing if we try to take on evolutionists with facts. Because the demons, just like they had my mind controlled, have their mind controlled. And I know people probably don't want to hear that, but I can't see any other way of saying it. How can you sit and look at evidence after evidence after evidence and still come up, just like I did until I was 37 years old and started becoming a Sabbath-keeping Christian, still come up that it's not yet. We're going to find out the truth. It's just not yet. Let's turn to Ephesians, the 6th chapter. And let's go to verse 10. It says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplications for all the saints. Now, we can't take on things that are spiritual without the armor of God. We can't take on things that are spiritual unless it's in the name of Jesus Christ. And it didn't hit me until about a week ago that this is the way you have to fight. I always thought if I could just tell them the facts, because it's a science, they'll believe it. And even today, it's kind of hard for me to see, but I see it now. And I know that might sound bad, but I was an evolutionist for many years, and I thought these people are true scientists. Tell them the truth. It doesn't work. They're invaded, and just like I was invaded, and they're not going to believe it. Knowledge is three parts. You got to know it, you got to understand it, you believe it. They know it and they understand it. They understand its circular reasoning. They know that Peking man was a hoax. But it doesn't matter, because it's spiritual. Matthew, the 16th chapter, verses 13 through 18. Let's go there. It said, when Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah, the one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, the son of Jonah. For flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. He did not say, well, Peter, who do you think I am? Peter said, you are the Christ. You are the one. And Christ said, flesh and blood didn't teach you this. It wasn't some kind of mental thing. It wasn't some kind of logical thing. The Father in heaven showed you. Flesh and blood did not teach me this Bible. The Spirit of God did. Flesh and blood did not bring you out of the world. Christ did. His Spirit brought you out. The Spirit of God brought you out. These people, their minds are not opened. It sounds just as illogical to them, my saying, in the beginning, divine Elohim created the heavens and the earth. It sounds just as stupid to them as evolution sounds to me. I know, because I was there. Because it's spiritual. And you can't understand it until God opens your eyes. So, we can pray that the demons be bound up so our children can hear the truth. But remember, I was convinced about evolution until I became a Sabbath-keeping Christian. Logic failed to rid me of evolution. Sabbath-keeping, Christianity, then it went away. Okay? No evidence, but not yet. It makes no sense. But to them, and to me, it did. Logical facts, nothing works. The only thing that will change them is the Spirit of God. Now, I want to tell you, just to read you some things that I've always wondered about. There was Peking or Piltdown Man was discovered in 1914. Peking Man stayed in the textbooks for 40 years as a missing link. It looked like a jawbone of an ape, but with the cranium of a man. Okay? In 1953, it was determined to be a hoax because it was an ape's jawbone with a man's head. And people found out it wasn't really a fossil anyway. But it stayed in the textbook for over 40 years, till 1953. Leakey, and I remember when I was a kid, Leakey came on, and he had Lucy and different apes turned out to be human beings or an ape, whichever one that he had picked up, but nothing was any kind of missing link. Nebraska Man, well, a whole man was built around a tooth, Nebraska Man. And they found out it was a pig's tooth. The only remains of Nebraska Man was a tooth, and it was a pig's tooth. And they built a whole man around that tooth. Java Man, they found out it wasn't a man at all, but it was a large gibbon or ape. None of it made any sense, but Du Bois is said in French, he admitted that he withheld parts of Java Man so that it would look more like a man rather than ape. And it was an ape. It was a gibbon. Homo habilis, they were discovered in 1986, the limb bones of Homo habilis. They showed that this animal clearly had ape-like proportions and could never have been classified as mankind. And it goes on and on, but all of them. Now the one that a lot of people talk about, the Neanderthal man, they said he was stooped over an ape-like. Actually, by studying the bones and the configuration, they found out these people are just small human beings. They're just human beings. All a hoax. And this was from an article on Creation Science, and it was item number 26. Evolutionists know these things. They know that there have been hoaxes and all of these different things and people withholding information, and withholding information is another fallacy. And they know people have done that for years and years, but it doesn't matter because they still know not yet. They still have faith. It's not yet. Therefore, the faith in evolution by many evolutionists is far greater than some Christians I've met. It's about mind control. I believe my premises supported my conclusion. Evolution is spiritual warfare. When you're talking to an evolutionist, it's not going to do any good to give them facts. It's only going to do good to pray for them. It's only going to do good to ask that the demons be bound up in the name of Christ, those that are parading around as pagan gods. We cannot fight the spirit with the mind. There'll always be that third ingredient gone, belief. Evolution is on just about every animal documentary. I love to watch documentaries about space and about animals. It relaxes me until about 10 minutes later they start talking about the evolution of the lion that I'm watching or the evolution of whatever that I'm watching. And I get up, yell at the TV, and turn it off. And I don't think they've ever heard me on the other side, but I keep yelling at it anyway. But our spiritual king, it makes no sense to them, and they're not going to hear anything. I didn't know that I was going to have a king that was going to come back and take over the earth and make everything wonderful, and the lion would eat straw and all this. I didn't know that, and it sounds probably illogical to most people. It's not illogical to me. To me, it's just the truth. Evolutionists believe in the spirit also, but it's the wrong spirit. Now, flesh and blood cannot teach us what we know in this room. We know it from the Father. We cannot turn around and fight what they learned from the demons over periods of time. We cannot turn around and fight them with logic either. Let's go to John, the 1st chapter, for closing. And it says, "In the beginning was the Word, And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him nothing was made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And that light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not comprehend it. Right now, most of the world lies in darkness. Evolution is part of that darkness. When Christ returns, the world will know what we know now. Jesus is the Christ. Yahweh Yahshua is our King, because we're kingdom people. We have declared Him our King. And when He comes back, and not until then, I'm afraid, the world will not know that all things were created through Him.
One of the things I forgot to announce prior to Nick